Hey, welcome to another empowering episode of Strive 365, your go-to source for conquering life's challenges and thriving no matter the odds. Whether you're seeking mental, physical, emotional, or spiritual growth, we're going to help guide you towards a better life. Now, I'm your host, Justen Arnold, coming from the amazing Roc Vox studio. Now, in today's episode, it's going to be a little bit different. It's on a personal note. It's a personal one where I'm going to be sharing the why behind everything that I do. Why I write, why I do this podcast, why I coach, why these endeavors go far beyond the monetary returns. I felt it was important. I felt it was important in the beginning of this year to explain that. You know, in our journey today, we're going to uncover the power of legacy that transcends material wealth, explore therapeutic nature of creative expression. We're going to dive into, hopefully, our actions and how they can inspire and shape the lives of others, especially our loved ones. I'll be sharing a profoundly insightful excerpt from Rick Rubin's new book, if you haven't read it, Creative Act. So look out for that, which beautifully, I believe, after reading this book, and just when I read this part, just encapsulates the essence of creativity and spirituality, and even a little bit of why we should do, or why we do, almost our purpose. And to wrap things up, if you're lucky, if you're blessed, whatever words you use, I'll be sharing something I actually wrote today that I plan to include in my new book and the final draft of my upcoming book, which I have here if you have video. Here's a little, as you can see, not for resale because I'm still editing, The Joyful Warrior: How to Find Meaning in Suffering, Thrive Through Adversity, and Find Joy Through the Storms to Maximize Our Life. So whether you're here for inspiration, insight, or just curious about the story behind my voice, Justen Arnold, I invite you to join me on this personal exploration of purpose, passion, and the pursuit of something greater. So, like I said, we're here to talk about why I do all the things that I do. And maybe you just know me from this podcast, maybe, which probably majority know me from my health and wellness business. Some know me from my first book, Purpose Through Pain, or even some that have come newer in my life, knowing my second book or other things that I have done. And it's so, I don't know if eerily is the word I want to use, but it's eerily similar to why I've done a lot of the things. As I was telling Scott, producer here at Roc Vox, before I was like, why I was doing this, and so many things in my life, like the big why of what I do. And for example, my book, Purpose Through Pain, it was initiated by a friend going on a mission trip, believing I had a huge story that could really help a lot of people. I pushed back, saying I couldn't write. I couldn't write. There's no way. I can't sit still. Nobody wants to hear my stuff. I have ADHD, making all these self-limiting beliefs, but it was really eventually hearing, all within a week span, several people, all not connected with each other, basically say along the lines, the theme that I've had a great life. I don't understand pain. I have good genetics, all these different things. And it was almost like a pissed off / people can benefit. And also just, I knew people could be motivated. Similar here. Why am I doing this episode?
That's interesting because a lot of people have no idea what is behind what they see, they see on Facebook. They think, now here's a guy, he's like got abs, he's rock solid, he's works out, he probably never had to really work hard a day in his life. Those
are the exact words people use.
Yeah, like you're the epitome of some kind of privilege, and it's like they have no idea what you've had to overcome in your struggles.
Yeah, I mean, you read my book because I could tell a whole story within what Scott just said, and thanks for chiming in there, bud. I appreciate it. And there's so much more to everyone's story, and this isn't a woe is me. It never is. It's to open people up because I truly believe in the therapeutic benefit of sharing our stories, even with just ourselves in the mirror. So remember that. But yeah, I mean, there's so much more, from a physical to a mental to emotional to growing up, poor and all these different things. I haven't really had it. Are people's stories worse than mine? For sure. But it's through discipline and striving and finding ways to thrive and find joy and purpose in my everyday life to keep me moving forward. And so why did I want to do this episode? Well, during even writing the second book, and even after the first book, and everything, even why I do this podcast, literally so many things, why I coach sports, I've had several people within the last few months question it. What's the return? Like, as if only this has a monetary return in it. But there's so much more, which I'm going to dive into, and I teased a little bit. But, why did I write my book, The Therapeutic? After finishing that first book, and why I encourage people to write, is probably one of the most therapeutic things I have ever done. And when I read my book, so I put my book together so much different. I just had somebody literally yesterday ask me, "Oh, you formed the outline." They just assume I did it how we all learned in high school or college or wherever you learned, if you ever learned how to put anything together. There's always like an outline and there's steps. Not that I'm anti rules. Maybe I am. If you go back to the younger Justin, yes, I was very much rule breaker. Oh, there's a rule, I want to find a way to break it. But it was more just knowing what worked with me. And I encourage everybody, if there's something you want to do, there's always a million ways to do it. And mine was like a puzzle. I feel like, say I have ADHD, which I've been diagnosed. I look at it as a gift and a superpower, which I've talked about on this podcast before, but I just knew the things and the topics and the things I wanted to write about and the quotes I wanted to use and literally all the pieces of the puzzle. And I put them all in a Google Doc. And then over time, literally over 10 months, less than that, actually, it was 10 months when it finally published, I ripped through this thing, just piecing the puzzle together, putting where I wanted what to be after what chapter and all those things. And we had it together. So it wasn't your conventional way of doing it. But sharing my writing has impacted so many people. It's even inspired my children. So like why I write, somebody questioned the book, for example, like I said earlier. And so it was therapeutic. Oh my goodness. It was if somebody would have told me, I don't say go write a book, and I've said this before, but just writing a journal or writing every day and reading it. If somebody would have told me, like I was told by therapists, I was good. I didn't need therapy, which is a whole other story. But if somebody would have told me and actually encouraged me and made me believe, I guess is another step, that writing would be one of the best, maybe it's not the best for everybody, but I would say it's number one for me. And then reading it over is better than anything I've ever spent money on therapy or health wise, mentally. And so when I read it finally, so the first time I read it front to back is when I got the not for pre-sale, like I have of my Joyful Warrior book. And I got to if you read my book, I got to a certain point or like Flashback City, reliving it. Like it felt like it was literally happening. And I was 5, 6, 7, 8 years old again. And I had to put it down. I just couldn't. And I'm like, man, I thought I was over everything because I wrote about it. No emotion there. This is like, but then reliving it, going back to that childhood self, which is a whole other thing I talk more into my second book. But I made the decision that the next day I would pick it up, go and read from the beginning of that chapter and really not fight, but see if I could make it through. I didn't know. And I did. And it was just like reading, and I did it. I read through it. And it was just like words on a paper, and it was just like, yeah, it was my story, but it was just like reading anything else. It was like reading Dr. Seuss to my kids, if that makes sense. And that's where I was like, wow. And the feeling, the euphoric, like healing that I felt from that. Wow. And so that's just number one. So if I only wrote and that was it, and I sold 0 books, it was worth all the time and money in the world. But other cool things. Obviously, people were helped. The amount of people, especially men and even women that have come up to me and of all different like faiths and beliefs and non-beliefs and all this, how it's just helped them. So that was just a wow factor. This book, I felt like I've helped more with this book than I have in my almost 20 years of fitness. Not to negate that. I've helped a lot of people with that as well, but it's just really cool that words, right? The power of words, but also my children. I've got 2 children that have affirmed they are going to be authors. In fact, my youngest daughter has already started writing her children's book. She started last year and she bugged me, when are we going to finish this, Dad? And so we're working on it because I feel the pressure and I really want to help her through it. So my 8-year-old daughter may not have seen it. My son's already talked about at least, he said he wants to write 10 books. He threw a number out there, right? And we know the power of that. And this right there has inspired my children. So I believe there's a legacy behind the material wealth there that is going to be left with my kids, so because generations from now can be helped from this book. My kids can read my story and hopefully learn and not repeat a lot of my mistakes. So that's been a really cool thing. So, it's just been really cool from the book standpoint, and even why I wrote a second one. Well, why would you write a first? You got to go, or why would you write a second? You got a first. Well, there's more to tell, and this one's a lot deeper, and there's still things that could really eventually help. And the question that was asked after the first book was, I've really found my purpose, or I know how to look for it now. Thank you. This is more about joy, because people are like, well, I still struggle with joy and happiness, and even with the challenges and the storms and the adversity and all the things going through my life. And so that's where it's like, man, I didn't realize it till having these conversations. No matter what, I've always been able to maintain a level of joy through everything I'm going through. And while I talk about this, I do talk about this more in my book. We also have to realize joy and happiness aren't always the same thing. So joy is within you and something you create, and happiness is more something you experience. So think about that. Like happiness is a birthday. You're happy at your birthday, a child's birthday, but say that birthday goes wrong. That's where we lean on joy. That's an easy way to explain it. So remember, a lot of these are way beyond. I know I've said it over again, but there's a lot of rewards to this beyond the monetary standpoint. So podcasting and YouTube. So why did I start doing that? So the purpose of my podcast, I had one that I started. It ran its course. Then Scott's blessed me with this opportunity, and we've teamed up on this to really just provide daily free gifts to people and how to strive. We've had guests on here. We've talked on here. And it's content. It's valuable content that we can put all over the internet. That's going to be there for however long the internet's long. So YouTube is a part of this as well. So I have a YouTube channel where this podcast is on. But since about 20, so almost a decade, I've been putting fitness and health related, nutrition, all things life coaching related videos on YouTube for free for people to check out. And the purpose of that is just, again, ways that people can look up and help. Could I monetize? I have some of it, but do I always have to? No, because at the end of the day, I want people to have this source later on in life. And there's people that just can't afford to maybe pay a trainer or pay a coach, and they get it for free on these podcasts. And again, these are tools that, yes, my children or anybody can use. So I put these platforms out there, or I put these on these different platforms, allow to reach and positively influence more people. And on that, I've had people literally just a few weeks ago. My wife and I were one of her friends' birthday celebrations. And I'll tell a little bit of the story. My wife already knows this. I didn't want to go. Like, nothing to the people that were there. I was in one of these, like, I don't want to be at a bar around people. I just want to I got my book. I got things I could work on, but I was like, I want to be there for my wife. We don't hang out as much with 3 busy kids and busy lives. So I said, suck it up, Justin, let's go out. And I was so grateful I did. Because literally within minutes of walking through the door, that person that was having her birthday walked up to me and just said, Justin, I want to thank you. I'm like, okay. Like, I didn't know, like, for coming. I'm not that big. Like, what? She's like, the world is full of pain. And she went on about, like, you get on social media or you turn on the news and there's just so much hate and evil. But I will literally, like, when I'm feeling especially really low or down or something, I will go literally to your Facebook page and watch one of your videos or read one of your posts, and I will be instantly uplifted, because I know when I go to your page, there'll be healthy content, like basically just that made her feel good. And she's told other people about it. And I'm like, wow. That I needed to hear that for one in that moment, but it was also like, wow, it just proof that, a bigger why to what I do. Am I getting any money from her? No, but there is a return in that her life. What if somebody's going to my page that I don't even know, that is on the ledge, that is on the verge, and something up there might save their life? There's enough stuff out there, and not to say they need to get rid of all it. I think we need information. But a lot of people have never been taught how to use that information, especially news and cycle. Plus, we go down a rabbit hole of conspiracy theory, what to believe. But that right there, why do we produce stuff? Why I share on these different platforms? Like, man, couldn't you put your time into something else? And I'm an entrepreneur and I'm around a lot of business, and I get it. We want to provide a level of service, which I do, but not everything needs to be monetary. Yes, we need to provide for our families, pay our bills, take care of things. And if we have more money, we can help more people. I get all that. But at the end of the day, that doesn't need to be the end all do all. Because what kind of legacy are we leaving? And I've said this word several times, and I've said it because I've heard so many people in so many different circles say legacy and talk about real estate, talk about their bank account, talk about all these things that can literally burn up, blow up, disappear within minutes, if not days, weeks, months. But there are things out there that you can leave that can last generations. And that's the words you say, the things you put out, the environment and the culture that you leave in your home. So do you need to do the things I do? Do you need to write books? Do you need to podcast? No, you don't need to do anything. It literally should be within your home. What are you leaving? You know what example? I say this often. What your kids or the people around you, like you learn from what you do versus what you say. You know, your children are becoming mirror images of you. And it doesn't mean be perfect. That's stressful. It just means do the best job you can. And if you make a mistake, like I do plenty of, you apologize, you forgive, or you do these different things in front of them so they see it because you want them to emulate, because you know they're going to F up.
Yeah, it's really... I'm sorry, I'm interjecting.
Go. I love this. I love that you are.
In my opinion, it's how you respond to those problems.
Amen.
That is the most important thing. You know, stuff's going to go bad. Things are going to happen your whole life. And sometimes all at once, maybe you'll go a couple of weeks without anything bad happening, but it happens, you know, and it's how your kids witness how you're responding to that, how you listen to the news, what your immediate reaction is. Do you sit and think about it for a second, take a deep breath and then respond? Or do you fly off the handle and go, oh, God damn it, I'm not, you know? That is where I came from. My father was very much like, whack, what are you doing? You know? And that's how I started. And it took me many years to figure out that I need to chill the F out, you know, like those problems aren't the end of the world. When something like that happens, you go, okay, let's think about this. What does this mean? Yeah. And then go from there. And, you know, teaching that to your kids is just as important as anything else that they're going to learn in school, if not more important, in my opinion.
No, I agree. I feel all of it is more important than what we can learn in school. I believe a lot of the school, don't take offense to this, school people, I think you're doing the best job that you know how, but...
With the tools given.
With the tools given. With that said, my kids are in public school, just so we're clear. I'm not homeschooling them. We're not... I mean, I would like that, honestly, but to spend more time with them. But it's I use school as to go there and also question it. I tell my kids not to worship anything. I mean, yes, we're people of faith, but we shouldn't worship teachers, schools. We should take everything. I use the grain of salt analogy, as meaning we should take it and be curious and explore it and question it and not be the end all do all. I remember in first grade, here's a story where I was told I was spelling my name wrong and I had to go to the principal's office. I remember that. I remember when...
they said you were spelling your name wrong? Because you spell it with an E, right?
Yeah. And people were... And my first grade teacher was fighting me on it and didn't believe me and thought I was lying and being combative. And I'm like... They literally had to bring a birth certificate. And this is my trauma life. Yeah, it's not that big of a deal. Like, this is the... Like, but that's traumatic to... I started crying because I was questioning my own name. I'm like, maybe I am wrong. Maybe I'm an idiot. Maybe I'm so dumb. Like, and this is where I learned early on where like... Yeah, I didn't include this in my book. Maybe I shouldn't add. No, but you don't need to know everything. But like... But seriously, like this is like, that's so minor compared to things I've been through, but it just shows like, and I'm glad that happened to me. When you looked at it as I look at it, because I remember that took me into being a parent and even a coach. And when I work with children in my own, that you can learn a lot from your kids just as much as you can teach them. It can be cyclical. Just because you have more information and men on this planet doesn't make you smarter or better by any means. I've learned so much from my kids. In fact, my son this morning, he saw me take this book out of the house that I'm going to read on here, a little caption in it. And he's like, oh, that's your new book. That's cool. I love the cover. We started talking, what's it about? And I told him, and I can't remember what it transitioned to, but he said, this is what the point of why I brought this story up was, he's like, yeah, I usually read through books 2 or 3 times. And I was like, I was jealous in that moment. I was like, man, I wish I was like that. I'm like, I look at books as candy. I like, boom, because I love them so much that I just want to move on to the next sometimes. And I'm like, man, I probably have all the books I would ever need to live an amazing life and learn from all the masters of sorts. I should just stop buying books, but I can't really commit to that statement. So don't hold me to it, because I do love books. But I probably would grow a lot by just reading them 2 or 3 times, learning from my son. But another story, I remember arguing with a student teacher's aide in like 4th or 5th grade, because I was really like, my dad got me into like Civil War history, and I learned a lot. Like I was above average of your 5th grader knowing about the Civil War. Literally, like I knew a lot. And facts versus truth. My dad wanted me to learn from both the South and the North, to really learn, because we heard like various perspectives. Anyways, I remember this. I argued with a student teacher, so he's still in college or graduating, about photographs, and that they didn't have cameras back then. And I'm like, yeah, they did. These are real photographs of Lincoln. I remember having this debate. I'm like, but then in that moment I questioned, wait, am I wrong? I literally had to go home.
Wait, he said that they didn't have cameras for...
that they were all painting still. I'm like, this guy's an idiot, but I didn't say that. But looking back, I'm like, this guy and it just shows like how we can get a false information at a very young age.
Yeah. As somebody who didn't do their research and just assumed they knew.
And for those that don't know, I am going to be 43 on January 19th. So in a couple of weeks, depending on when this airs. And like, that still bugs me. I need to get over it, right? Like, but we're getting a little...
you want to find him and be like, hey, remember when you said
I remember what
this?
he looks like. He looks different, obviously, now. He's probably could be retired. Well, maybe not. He'd be what? Let's see. We're looking at... yeah, maybe.
He's probably in his early 20s back then, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. So, he's dead, dark hair. He was about your
What's
build.
His address? Let's go find him.
He was a white guy with dark hair. That narrows it down.
Yeah.
But I mean, this, like, we're talking about family and life, and it also goes into work-life balance. Your kids are watching, so if they see you workaholic, they're going to mimic that, and so if they see you creating, I'm all about creating and leaving stuff. I believe we're all built in creative. We're all built as creators, just our muse is different. I really truly believe that. And so my kids are seeing that, but also balancing, why I coach, for example. I was like, somebody was telling me, you need to back off coaching. You got to focus on your business. You got to focus on this. Like, I've had business coaches and the likes. And I'm like, at the end of the day, yeah, I could make a lot more money, but, coaching my kids' sports is like the highlight of my week. I'm not going to turn that down. Plus, it's not the highlight of my week. It's a highlight of their week. At the end of the day, and I've had conversations, and psychology books on parenting and children will tell you this, all your kids want is you. And all they want is you to play with them and hang out with them. Like, my kids will practice hockey or whatever sport or whatever thing, if more often without... raise your hand if you're a parent. Let's backtrack. And you've asked your kids to do something and they don't do it for whatever reason. Go clean your room, go practice your instrument, go practice your sport. And it's turned into fights and frustration. Trust me, because I've done this. But I've learned, again, we can't sacrifice completely. There's got to balance. You got to work. You got to do these things. But every time I do it with them, like if I clean the room with them, even if I just get a start and then walk away, like they continue most times. Same thing with their sport. Same thing with their instrument. Same thing with anything. And it was something I learned. I was like, oh my God, all I got to do is participate and show up and do the thing, even if horribly, and they'll do it.
Amazing.
Amazing. And so this is why. So why do I coach? There, to be with them, to be more time with them. So, it's voluntary. I'm not seeing a monetary return, but there's so much more value. And that's time. I feel time is the most valuable resource. And I talk about that in my first book. So how are you doing it? How are you, using it? So think about that, and so just, I want to remind you all those things. So, most therapeutic, some of these things that I do, like it's therapeutic to coach. It's therapeutic to do these podcasts and talk on it, honestly. I needed to find an outlet. I have ADD and I like to talk. So there we go. It's helped countless numbers of people, like I talked about. It's inspired my kids to do things, to write, to dream big. And it's left legacies for my kids. And I've helped, like I said, countless numbers of people. And I've built relationships through all these different venues with coaches. Scott and I have grown. We've had some great times more than we've had some challenges. And that's only grown our relationship.
Yep.
And we've gotten to know each other because at the end of the day, we cared more about each other than we did about anything else. And then we're willing to work through that. So that's it. So I wanted to read a little bit, like I said, Rick Rubin. I think it's time to take a pause and reading Rubin's perspective and how it relates to my experience, and probably just reading it alone, you'll see how it relates. But it goes into the craft. I feel we're all creators. Like I said, I feel we are all products of our own environment. Sure. And I feel, and I imagine that, let me just read. How about that? Let me shut up and just read. So if you don't know who Rick Rubin is, he's a massive music producer that's been around for a while. He also creates other things of art and different things. And of course, anybody that's got a big name and has created stuff, there's also going to be some controversy. So if you look him up, you'll probably find some of that. But the one thing I know about, just outside looking in, this guy cares about others and he cares about his own mental health. And I think he doesn't start his like actual work day till like 11 or 12 and goes till like 6. Like his whole morning, I don't think he wakes up from an alarm. His whole morning is meditation, cold plunging, working out, taking care of mental and physical, emotional well-being well before he meets with anybody. So just a little scope on that.
He's also in that position to be able to do that.
True. Good point. Like
not everybody can.
So to give you an example, like, well, he must be blessed. Well, yeah, he is, but he's worked hard. But yeah, we've all worked hard, and some is, chance and knowing the right people. And I don't like to use the word luck, but maybe, but, for my version, that's the reason why I wake up at like 5 a.m. and do some of those things. And I break it up, and why I write my books, because the books, I give a lot of tools, especially in the second one, to help the normal people out there that haven't been gifted, or live that life, or may never live that life, but they can still live a joyous and happy and fulfilling life. And there's ways to do that. For example, I talked recently, and I talk regularly about people who can't get workouts in, and movement snacks, and getting an accumulative of like 45 minutes to an hour a day. Doesn't mean all in once. Even my wife and other people I know have taken that on, and just how like moving every couple of hours, how good that feels mentally. And that's what they talk about more than they do that they're losing weight and all these different things. So he didn't have like chapters. It's like sections, which is interesting because my book has subsections and chapters. So I love that he did this his own way. I don't even think in this book he talks about himself at all, which is really interesting. The Unseen is the title of this. By conventional definition, the purpose of art is to create physical and digital artifacts, to fill shelves with pottery, books, and records. Though artists generally aren't aware of it, the in-work is a byproduct of a greater desire. We aren't creating to produce or sell material products. The act of creation is an attempt to enter a mysterious realm, a longing to transcend. What we create allows us to share glimpses of an inner landscape, one that is beyond our understanding. Art is our portal to the unseen world. Without the spiritual component, the artist works with a crucial disadvantage. The spiritual world provides a sense of wonder and a degree of open-mindedness not always found within the confines of science. The world of reason can be narrow and filled with dead ends, while a spiritual viewpoint is limitless and invites fantastic possibilities. The unseen world is boundless. The word spirituality may not speak to those who dwell chiefly in the intellect or those who equate the word with organized religion. If you prefer to think of spirituality as simply believing in connection, that's fine. If you choose to think of it as believing in magic, that's fine too. The things we believe carry a charge, regardless of whether they can be proven or not. The practice of spirituality is a way of looking at a world where you're not alone. There are deeper meanings behind the surface. The energy around you can be harnessed to elevate your work. You're a part of something much larger that can be explained, a world of immense possibilities. Harnessing this energy can be marvelously useful in your creative pursuits. The principle operates on faith, believing and behaving as if it's true. No proof is needed. When you're working on a project, you may notice apparent coincidences appearing more often than randomness allows, almost as if there is another hand guiding yours in a certain direction. That speaks to me so much. As if there's an inner knowing gently informing your movements. Faith allows you to trust the direction without needing to understand it. Pay particular attention to the moments that take your breath away. A beautiful sunset, an unusual color, eye color, a moving piece of music, the elegant design of a complex machine. If a piece of work, a fragment of conscious, or an element of nature is somehow allowing us to access something bigger, this is a spiritual moment made to manifest. It awards us a glimpse of the unseen. So it just shows that like whatever we want to create, we can create. And there's so much more to creating than we like to see. And there's so much more of a return than our monetary return, that, you just do it to do it, to provide something. And whether it's something, like you said, whether it's something faith or whether it's something, deep inside or whatever it might be, we in tune also something I haven't really talked about is we do it for the world, but we also do it for ourselves. Mm-hmm. I wrote my book, both of them. I do a lot of the things, especially these books I can talk on. I didn't realize it till I was done with the first one. I wrote this book for me. The second one I wrote for me, and not selfishly. I didn't realize it until they're pretty much done. Knowing there's thousands of me or previous me's out there that could really be helped by this, but also for my own benefit, but also for the kids out there as well. So I just want to encourage you to think about your own why, why you do what you do, or if there's something. Don't feel bad if the state of your life is not where you'd like it to be. That's part of it. That's part of the journey, as Rick Rubin talks about in his book. That's part of your experience that you can share with yourself, with your family, or with the world, So, I want you to think about it, and I want to encourage you, if somebody questions what you do, it's not their job to tell you what to do. Even your boss, let's be honest. You can listen to it. You can take it in. I just want people to stop living in fear of what they feel called to do, what they want to do, and just really think about the journey versus the end result. The journey is meant to be enjoyed, and that doesn't mean it's always safe or calm. I look at a surfer. I've been surfing, and surfing is an interesting thing where we all eventually fall, right? The end. And we can't always predict the waves that are going on, but we can enjoy the entire experience and the journey along the way. If you're not familiar with surfing, go try it. But just think of anything else. It's even hiking or whatever you do, even if it's not a physical thing, which I highly encourage getting out in nature and doing physical stuff. It's the journey. It's the process. Yes, we want end results, but sometimes it's dreaming so big or wanting to something so big, even if it's not having a monetary return for whatever reason, that we don't get there because it's not about that. It's not about that end result. It's about the process in between. And taking those moments and stop to play with our kids or smell a flower or be a coach or write a book. And a lot of these, like, man, you got a business to run. Why are you writing a book? Or you got this to do. Why are you doing that? Now, yes, maybe we should question and should have people in our life to question so we can, do the right thing and always improve and get better. But also we have to remember everybody's at different stages. Maybe not everybody is at the stage where they want to get better right now. And maybe they're in this journey or in this, not journey, but in this season where this is part of their process and we need to respect that. And this is part of their art. I had somebody that I know, we had a conversation about this and he said, oh, I'm not a creator. I'm not a visionary. That's you. That's this guy. And he named off a bunch of other people. And I looked to it and I said, we all are creators and visionaries in our own right. Just our muse is different. So think about that. Like, what are you creating? What kind of legacy are you leaving? What is your why for even being on this planet? Because I believe we're all here. And if you feel comfortable in your why, and if your why is somebody else, or if it brings insecurity in you because of what somebody else thinks, if you enjoy it, or if you think that's your why, if your why literally is mopping floors and you love it, do it. If yours is producing podcasts, do it. If yours is being on podcasts, do it. If yours is big, small, however you look at it, remember, this is your journey, no one else's. No one else's. And it's not up to anybody else to decide how you create it, how you live it, how you go about it. So I just wanted to leave that. And I was going to, before I end up here, did you have anything else you wanted to add, Scott, or anything you wanted to ask me?
When you were, can you remember the moment where you knew that you were going to write a book?
I don't remember the exact week, but I remember I was leaving the YMCA in Greece. And it was the final straw that week where a guy literally told me, you don't understand hard. You don't understand. Oh, there's more to that story.
There always is.
He said, so I had just broken a big toe on my foot. A weight dropped on it months ago and it was just healing. And they gave me a ton of hardcore painkillers that I just for those that know, I don't take painkillers for a lot of reasons. Mm-hmm. One, the addictive nature, but two, they mess up my gut ever since my appendix was up. Yep. And also I'm not masochistic. I want to feel the pain. So I know it hurts. So I know what not to do. We can further injure our bodies by taking these things or do worse things, so just keep that in mind. That's why I do it. Anyways, he knew I had them. And he wanted to buy them off me because he was dealing with a lot of pain that he had never dealt with. And he wanted to just mask the pain and never look for the root cause of the issue, which is what I help people out. I look for the root issue. And I basically said, no, that's illegal. Yeah. Two, I have a conscience, let alone integrity. And he fought me on it. He's like, well, you don't understand a hard life. You don't understand what it's like. You've had good genetics. You look great. He just made all these assumptions. And the guy barely knew me other than passing in the Y and talking to him. And I was like, for those that have kids in the room, I'm about to cuss, but I was like, fuck it. This is why I need to write, not to prove him wrong. I mean, I think that was the initial, but I think this was for me who believes in God talking to me like, Justin, because my life story is God kicking me in the butt, and which has always led to something phenomenal. And this was the kick in the butt that I needed, like the icing on the cake, or however you want to look at, to finally sit down and be like, I don't know how to, but I will figure it out, because I know my story, that if people see me this way, he's not the only one that sees me like this. Others see me like this. And so they see me in a good place in life, and they just assumed it was easy, and it has not. It's been a long, hard walk, and it continues to be. And that's what I was going to share here that I wrote today, how it's been a long, hard road, and I've had a really good season. And that long, hard road, I've had a season of hardship and at the end stages of this book, at the end stages of 2023, that I haven't really shared about, but we're now coming on the other end, and I've almost to the point not talked about it and not wanted to talk about it. Because one, it gets me really emotional. Mm-hmm. And it's also because I put myself on a pedestal and I needed to be humbled, and I've been humbled. And the ego, how it gets in the way so much. But that's part of the journey and part of the process of having that awareness to learn from these stages. But I need people to know this, that even when you're at top, and I've been in a pretty good place, financially, personally, professionally, all these things. But life does come in seasons, and they can't always stay there. And you've heard the phrase, what comes up doesn't must, but it can come down. And it's up to you. And part of the coming down could be your fault. And so take your responsibility in that. But the coming up is all your fault. So for you to be able to get back up, you have to do the work. And so that was that, Scott, as far as the final. And the second one I talk about a little bit in the book, but it was somebody we mutually know was taking me to a George Takei talk when I was soon after publishing my first book. And I think it was on the way there, but we were just talking about what the talk was going to be about, knowing George Takei's story and being in Japanese internment camp. And when he was here on U of R campus, but I remember, man, another cuss word's coming up because this was almost the title to my first book. A little sneak peek here. I might have a quiz later and do some giveaways on Instagram. But I was like, life can. I literally shouted in her Jeep, and I was like, yes. And we were talking about something. And I was like, yes, life can still be enjoyed even through the shit storms. And I was like, and she's like, that's the next title of your book. Well, it wasn't the next title. And for a lot of different reasons. I almost thought about it though, but I also remembered I want this book to be on shelves where kids might be, including my own. Right. And I don't know. And I was like, well, that would limit sales and impact and all these different things. But but just for that, yeah. So that inspired this next one. And it was only because she knew my story. I know my story, and I never really reflected on it. And I was like, oh, you know what? Even, yeah, I've had these things, but I've always come out of it. And it's always come back to how I've always been able to, maybe not within the moment, but within the journey. Because remember, these are journeys. I've been always able to create that joy, find that joy. Yeah. And so I'm the person to talk about it, but I'm the person to talk about it because of like my experiences in my past, but I realize also my present. So there's nothing else, Scott. I'll be happy to share that.
Cool. Thank you.
So it's not in my book, but it's going to be as the plan. I'm going to share it with you here. I wasn't going to, but I believe this is a higher power at work, and why it came to me today. And so a little background on how this came. I just started writing. I wasn't like, this is going to be on my book. I was like,
stream of consciousness.
It was like journaling, stream of consciousness. Again, I say writing is one of the most therapeutic. So I started writing. But I believe, so this is literally, I feel like if I was a Matthew McConaughey, this would be a big deal. And, people would be all over it just because this is a unique, you get this gift. So only people that listen or watch this episode will get this. Because I don't plan on putting this on social media, what I'm about to say here, even if I do clip up this episode, which I plan on doing. So again, I started writing, and then I went through and I read it, and then I edited it like I did. I didn't read straight through because I broke it up. This is just how my brain works. I read different parts of it. And then I read from the beginning of it and out loud by myself, to myself, and like waterworks, like on the front cover of my book came down my face, and I was like, and I emailed my publishing company, and I was like, I wrote not a long email, but a couple paragraphs of why this needs to be in my book, and it needs to be at like the very front. So without further ado, woo! And by the way, I got really nervous, and I'm still really nervous about reading this, but I'm going to do it anyways. Love y'all. Okay. And this might get edited too. But here's the first draft. As I approach the conclusion of editing the final draft with Joyful Warrior, I find myself reflecting on both the journey of this book and my own life's path. When I first embarked on this endeavor, life was in a particularly great place on all fronts: fitness, finances, family, and my faith. Throughout my 43 years, I'm going to be 43 on January 19th. Throughout my 43 years, I've weathered numerous challenges since birth, gathering a wealth of wisdom and knowledge that I've shared in my books. These experiences have deeply informed my understanding of what it means to be a joyful warrior, thriving through various difficult seasons of life. However, as this book neared completion, my life presented a new set of challenges that tested me both personally and professionally. My business faced hurdles in a variety of ways, to the point that I was considering selling everything and moving on after years of progressive success. Additionally, I felt a shift in my purpose, feeling called to a faith-centered career in ministry, yet struggling with fundraising and gardening support. Questions about my place in God's plan surface, adding to my introspection. In my personal life, too, there have been serious trials. For 10 weeks, a persistent cough originating from my left lung has left me drained, challenging my workouts and casting a shadow of my physical well-being. Not COVID, by the way. Despite thorough medical examinations and tests revealing great numbers and you're super healthy, the physical ailment seemingly out of nowhere for this healthy guy on paper has become a part of my journey. My marriage and other relationships outside my immediate family have also faced their tests. It's not my intention to cast negative light on my loved ones, my wife, kids, parents, siblings, or other family members. Rather, I want to acknowledge these challenges as part of my journey. Amidst these trials, there have been moments of joy and even triumph. Many of these challenges I recognize lie within my control, and in some cases are a result of my own actions. This realization brings me two key insights. A testament to resilience. These challenging times, both physical and emotional, are not just obstacles, but opportunities. They serve as a testament to a higher power's belief in my strength. Facing and overcoming these hurdles has equipped me to be a better teacher, someone who doesn't just preach, but practices the principles laid out in this book. Number 2, living proof of the joyful warrior's path. These experiences affirm my qualifications to talk about being a joyful warrior. It's one thing to speak from my past experiences, but it's another to navigate through storms while penning a guide to how to endure them. This makes my message not just retrospective, but immediate and real. As I write this, it's January 3rd, and the new year has brought with it a sense of hope and renewal. The year has started on an incredible note with new clients and substantial donations like $25,000 to my mission with FCA. My wife and kids are thriving, connecting in meaningful ways, setting weekly expectations, and getting back to the basics like having fun, being present, and listening. These blessings underscore the cyclical nature of life's challenges and joys, reinforcing the message of Joyful Warrior. That resilience, faith, and joy are not just concepts, but lived experiences that guide us through every storm. In sharing this, my hope is not to draw sympathy, but to offer solidarity, to connect with you, the reader, who might be navigating your own storms. If this book can light a path or offer a tool that aids in your journey, then every word written will have served its purpose. So that is why I do what I do.
It's beautiful.
And I hope you find your why. And I hope this episode helps you. And if it doesn't, think of somebody it might and share it. Thank you. I'm Justen Arnold. This is Strive 365, and we will continue this in more episodes in 2024 to help you strive daily. Thank you very much. Take care.